Today, we are honored having Ms. Amanda, Vice President, Talogy, Middle East and Africa. Hi, Ms. Amanda.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you very much indeed.
Ms. Amanda, you have a great journey from founding the Devonshire Group to leading Talogy in the Middle East and Africa. How do you adapt your leadership styles when managing teams in these different settings?
Very interesting question, actually. I was running Devonshire Group more than 20 years ago in the City of London, and here I am now in the Middle East. And I think for me, the biggest changes have been in not only with managing, obviously, a multicultural team, but also in the fact that they're actually a lot younger than me. So I'm working with a younger population and working from a population from a more diverse background. And I think, obviously, because of that, there are communication challenges, there are language challenges, obviously, for me personally, and those misunderstandings can lead to a reduced collaboration if you're not careful. Clearly with cultural differences, there comes a different perspective to values, to attitudes towards hierarchy, which was a big thing I noticed when I came here. To the ways in which we deal with conflict, the ways in which we deal with fairness and inclusion, I found quite different coming from the UK to coming here to the Middle East. So I think as leaders, we have to really navigate that quite carefully and just be sensitive to those differences in age and also ethnicity in that regard. And have a real competence towards that sort of intercultural, or certainly awareness towards that intercultural play, so that actually you are able to engage people, get the best from people, ensure that your team is working collaboratively.
As a leader in the field of occupational psychology, how do you ensure that the assessments and development strategies you pursue are currently relevant and effective across these diverse regions like the Middle East and Africa, as you just mentioned?
So as a leader in occupational psychology, how do I ensure the assessment and development strategies are culturally relevant? Well, there's a few different things depending really on the assessments. The first would be, with psychometrics, ensuring that we have local norm groups, for example, that there's been translation and back translation, so that actually it's not just accurate from a language point of view, but also for conceptual accuracy. It's not a literal meaning, it's contextual. Clearly, we also need to make sure that the settings are appropriate as well, so that actually we have improved or maintained sort of validation and reliability studies. We've got to make sure these assessments are measuring the right things. And therefore, we're putting things into scenarios, into contexts that are familiar. We're not focusing on what I would call kind of Western-centric biases, which you do see in a lot of assessments. With exercises, again, it's about making sure that we've picked up some of those situations, so that it actually feels familiar, it feels the context is appropriate. And also that we're aware of some of those cultural differences. If you're aware of Hofstede's work on things like power distance, collectivism versus individualism, uncertainty avoidance, and that sort of thing, you have to be mindful of those things in exercises. Do people, for instance, wait to be introduced, or do they introduce themselves? There's a big cultural piece around that. So we have to be mindful of those when we're creating exercises. And then, of course, there's this culture of feedback giving. I find in the West, there's a lot more, I'm not going to say harsh, but direct feedback. Here, there isn't that direct feedback so much. People are much more wary of how they give feedback to people. There's a bit of a pullback from giving people honest feedback. People are more mindful of other people's feelings and sensitivities. So, for instance, with 360 surveys and those sorts of assessments, one of the questions I always ask when I'm talking to organisations is your organisation really ready for that? Are people actually comfortable providing honest and open feedback? Or is the survey going to come back with everybody being a 5? So you need to be mindful of all of those things when you're putting assessments into place.
Talking about psychology, in your opinion, what's the role of psychology in enhancing business performance and employee engagement?
I think psychology plays a very big role, a vital role actually, in enhancing business performance and, of course, employee engagement. We provide what I would say is evidence-based insights into behaviour and into really understanding motivation and therefore also into leadership development. You know, when we understand behaviour, we're able to ensure that people are more included, we're able to assess people more effectively and, of course, develop people more effectively. And I think also communicate more effectively in the organisation. One of the big disciplines I think we also bring is this understanding of psychological safety, of emotional intelligence. And when leaders and managers, even right down to first line managers and supervisors, are aware of their own personal state and aware of the impact they're having on others and how to actually motivate others and get the best performance from a team, that really is about an understanding human behavior, and that really is what psychology is all about. It's understanding what drivers exist to really improve performance.
Okay, back to Middle East and Africa. How do you see the role of HR evolving in the Middle East and Africa over the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, especially with the increasing shift towards technology and AI.
Yeah, I think over the next 5 to 10 years, the role in HR in the Middle East is expected to evolve into a much more strategic and digitally integrated function. I think that, we're going to be moving away from really a kind of an administrative focus to something that's a lot more strategic. And as you've said, AI is going to play an increasing role in all functions of the organization, as well as HR, of course. I think in this transition, HR leaders need to be able to balance technology with human-centered practices, because I think despite all the technology and advances, people are still fundamentally looking for connection. They're still fundamentally looking to be understood and to communicate and build relationships. So I think for the role of HR is working out how to leverage technology while still having this kind of more human-centric approach.
Okay, from your opinion, what do you believe are the most important competencies for leaders in today's corporate environment?
Well, our own research was the in-view leadership research that Talogy conducted actually over the last 3 years. It's been a huge piece of work. Over 2,000 people in 23 countries have taken part in it. And our research would suggest that it starts at the core with identity. We need to encourage leaders to understand themselves and to lead authentically from their core values and character. And the second biggest part of this fundamental piece is emotional intelligence. As leaders, we need to have the ability to recognize and understand and manage our emotions, and of course, understand and manage others. And essentially, that's going to be the secret to a collaborative workforce. And then building on these kind of core pillars, if you will, there are clearly a set of behaviours that we determined in our research. One is around agility. You know, we've got so much change out there. How do we have an agile mind? How do we build resilience in the face of all this change? The second piece will be around inspiring purpose. How do we articulate a compelling vision that motivates and aligns people? That's going to be critical going forward. It probably always has been critical, but I think now, especially the younger populations, they want to be more and more involved and they want to understand what they're getting into. And we need an empowering approach. We need to be a little bit more autonomous. We need to get people greater autonomy in order to really encourage team members to contribute meaningfully. And I think authentic connection was the fifth pillar that we determined, which was about building genuine relationships, especially with the young people coming through, and those relationships being based on trust and on respect. And then finally, amongst all this change, how do we keep that steady presence? How do we create stability and confidence and take out some of that uncertainty and ambiguity that really is distracting and can really take, it can really put people into the wrong frame of mind. So as leaders, we've got a big role. We're creating certainty and steadiness. We're creating agility and response to change, all the while keeping this sense of purpose and empowering others to really contribute to the vision. It's a big ask from leaders in this new world, actually. Definitely.
Interesting. Do you think that these competencies are different in the banking sector?
I think they probably are relevant to all leadership roles, but I think in banking in particular, if I compare it to, say, the government sector, clearly what we have in banking is the additional skill sets around things like customer centricity, integrity and ethical conduct. We've got financial and commercial acumen, of course, but I think all of the other competencies probably are the same. And I think that's what our research said. We, as I say, 23 countries took part, industries as from oil and gas through to government. And it was pretty consistent. Didn't matter who we asked, it was pretty consistent. But I think in banking, if I compare it to, say, the government sector, it is going to be about this customer centricity and this financial and commercial acumen and really being able to empathize and connect with your customer.
How can the HR departments help cultivate these competencies through development programs?
I think it's, from my perspective, it's about how we retain and develop and attract talent, full stop, actually. Again, our research suggests that employees really want personalization, they want purpose, they want flexibility. And that's not just in our development of young people, it's also in our attraction and our retention. To retain talent, organizations need to have, in my view, flexibility of hybrid models, flexibility of development as well. We don't just want to send people away for 5 days and then come back and carry on as we were. We want continuous learning platforms. And I think what we'll see increasingly across the Middle East is individual career paths. We will see AI-driven development tools. We're already seeing it in some of our clients, AI-driven coaching tools. So actually, I think we will see a lot more access to development delivered in different kinds of ways, delivered in the flow of work, if you will, and delivered so that it's very much more individualized and personalized than it was before.
In what innovative strategies do you believe are most effective in attracting and retaining top talent, especially in the banking sector?
Yeah, I think, if we're going to attract top talent, especially I think from this new generations, these younger people sort of entering the workforce for the first time, there is an expectation now that an organization needs to appeal to me as much as I need to appeal to the organization.
Yes.
There's a bit of a war on talent, and I'm sure you've noticed it in the banking sector in Egypt as well. Our research again suggests that actually younger people are looking for something far more personal. So it's not about putting an advert out, waiting for people to apply. It's about showcasing your culture, ensuring that it feels like a personalized candidate journey. It's about ensuring that there's a sense of purpose in the messaging and people can get really galvanized around your strategy. And I think as well, they want to see flexibility. And that's still quite new. Certainly in the Middle East, in the markets that we work in. We work across the Gulf and, of course, North Africa. And I think what we're seeing is this very gradual shift towards allowing people more flexibility to their hours of work, for instance, whether they work from home, for instance. In the West now, I think what we're seeing is people are very comfortable working from home or working in their own hours. And I think it's something that's really taking a little bit of a shift here, but it's a slow shift from what I can see. And I think, if I look at other things that the banking sector just needs to be mindful of is leveraging talent, data-driven talent analytics to really support recruitment campaigns. employer branding, as I mentioned, is going to be important. I think that's probably it. It's about really appealing to younger people in particular, and being really mindful of your employee brand, the way in which you communicate, what's in it for them.
And from your perspective, what are the most important HR trends that require building awareness on it across the corporates and banks?
Yeah, I would say it goes back to AI, actually. It's about having an awareness of these new digital integrated working, especially in the banking sector. We've seen more and more move away from, walking into a branch and having all your services delivered digitally. So that is going to continue as a trend. And of course, the development of AI skills is going to be continued. So I think, we have a role to play in HR in making sure that people are up to speed on new technologies available. And again, going back to what I was saying earlier, whilst keeping human-centric.
And how do you perceive Talogy's role on that?
We are constantly looking at, the way in which our tools speak to people, the candidate journey when they first get an assessment sent to them, how do we communicate that assessment? What is their journey like when they are taking that assessment? So, is it short? Is it quick? Is it easy to understand what is required from me? Can I perform at my best? Is it fun? Is it immersive? Is it engaging? So we're constantly thinking about how we can present our assessments differently, and of course, how we can present our learning solutions differently. As I mentioned earlier, keeping development in the flow of work, making sure that it feels personalized, it's not generic, and enabling technology to deliver some of that development. So those are all the things that's sitting at the forefront of our minds. How to make it more immersive whilst ensuring predictability and validity, as we mentioned earlier. Science has to sit at the back of all of these things, so that's important.
Thank you so much, Ms. Amanda. Unfortunately, our questions came to an end today, but thank you so much. We'd like to thank you for your valuable information you shared with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.